Well, thank you, everybody. My name is Colin Case, and I've been a rural GP out in Western Queensland for 10 years, but I get involved with work that's being done in New Guinea by Dr. Barry Kirby and the Hands of Rescue Foundation, reducing maternal mortality in the Milne Bay area. Just to set the mood, a short 5-minute video just to get everybody into the feel of things.
1 in 30 women will die from a childbirth over their reproductive life. That's how it works out. You compare that to Australia, it's 1 in 10,000. In the most part in Australia, we've forgotten how dangerous a pregnancy can be, because most women now deliver in hospitals, and or if they're delivering at home, they'll have an obstetrics team there close at hand. But you've only got to come to the north and see how women suffer in Papua New Guinea, and you'll see it's very real. It's a natural process, but it can go wrong. We support around about 23 health centres now. We also train the staff in obstetrics, how to deal with obstetrics emergencies. So it's all about reducing maternal deaths. The places we go to are really remote. For the most part, there's no power there. Moresby, Hotel Oscar Romeo, good morning on 124.1. You know, about 1 in 10 women, when they're delivering a baby, they'll have a problem. It can be minor or it can be a major. How do you read? The result is that a lot of women get into difficulty in the village, and they don't make it. And PNG has a very, very high maternal death rate.
Of women in PNG give birth in their house or in another house in their village, which is not set up for birth, which is not supported by any health professional if something goes wrong. And so that's why the rate of mothers dying in childbirth in this country is one of the highest in the world.
It's largely due to the culture of village births. Their mothers delivered in the village, and so that tradition has been going on for many, many years. When we asked mothers, why don't you come to the health centre for a safe delivery, they said, well, we don't have babies' clothes, we don't have our own things, we're very poor and we feel very self-conscious about it. Sometimes it's just too far away, there's nowhere to stay when they come to the health centre. Morning, Korea. And see sister, eh? So we had a problem. We had a problem of the village deliveries and a problem in our health centres. Sister Doctor, here you are. That's number 110. Yeah. So first of all, we had to encourage mothers to come out of the village, and we did that with a mother and baby gift. Good morning, mothers. I just want to show you this little bundle that we're going to give you for coming down to the health centre. This is a little gift that's from Sister and the staff here, and it was a great success. We had a 100% increase in supervised deliveries. We've got a baby bath here.
Very has brought about so much improvement here. One is waiting house for antenatal, and one is bringing free baby bundles to us.
If you come down and have a supervised delivery,
baby bundle is so popular here because a lot of couples don't afford to buy these things.
When we went to some of these areas and we were asking the question, what do you need, what do you want? And they said, oh yeah, look, we've been asked many times this sort of thing, but nothing ever happens. But of course this time it did. We've made over 4,000 mother and baby gifts, and they're a practical gift for a rural mother. We pack everything into a baby dish, which the mothers told us that was the one they like. A mother can go to a health centre with nothing, and we give her, the health staff will give her this gift for the reward for walking down and coming to the health centre and having a supervised delivery, and they'd never ever be able to afford those items that we provide. You know, trying to reduce maternal deaths is not a thing that you stop overnight. Yeah, this is our first waiting house we built at Sayalaya, and we built it for the long distance mothers up on the mountains behind us here, who have an 8 or 10 hour walk sometimes to come down. So the idea was they'd come down here and they could wait here for up to a week until such time as the labour pains would come on, and then they can just go into the health centre. And it's part of the whole chain, trying to sort the whole chain out, which comes together to cause a maternal death. One of them is not having a place to stay.
Okay, hope that sets the flavour a little bit. You can tell from the video that we're working in some really remote places. The Milne Bay province is this area that's roughly outlined by the red dotted rectangle. Most of the population in the Milne Bay province actually live on the islands, not on this little tip here of mountainous PNG mainland. They're largely subsistence farmers. They get their food from their gardens and by fishing. They get a little bit of money by trading the wares that they manage to collect at local markets. The larger of the centres, usually where the health centre is, has a local market where people can sit and buy things. There's only one significant town in the province, that's Alatau. It's the capital of the province, but by Australian standards, it's really quite small. It has a small commercial centre with a few supermarkets, one bank, telecom places, and so on. The hospital has fairly limited resources, and Alatau is the only place in the province that actually has a full hospital with a surgical unit. Here you can see the emergency department and the outpatient department, and here's a typical ward. If you get admitted to a ward in the hospital there, you bring your own carer with you because they're the ones that have to feed you and look after you while you're there. Away from Alatau, healthcare is provided by about 40 health centres scattered throughout the province, usually in the largest of the villages and usually on a beach. These are staffed by a nurse or a health extension officer, probably their equivalent of our nurse practitioners, some community health workers. Sometimes somebody will be trained as a midwife. About 3 or 4 of these health centres have doctors there at least some of the time. Each health centre has about 12 to 20 aid posts that they look after in the villages up in the mountains, and they'll be manned by a community health worker, and the staff from the health centre visit these every month or so to do antenatal clinics and immunisation clinics. The geography of the province is rugged. That's all you can say about it, both on the islands and in the mainlands. Even on the islands, they're tall mountains. They're not just little hills. There are very few roads there, and on most of the islands there are no roads at all. There's no electricity. There is no water supply. The dwellings are very simple. They're made from bush materials. This is one sort of away from the beach, and here you can see people living on the beaches. And these are the houses that Prof Moller is referring to when he says women deliver their babies in their houses. No electricity, no running water, cooking in an open fireplace. Travelling around the islands or on the mountains, fairly simple. You walk like Sister Keela and Sister Cindy are here. They're coming up a mountain track which goes to a village to do some family planning clinic training. And the tracks often follow streams down the mountains like this. So try to picture yourself 40 weeks pregnant, you've just gone into labour, and you've got a 4 to 6 hour walk to come down one of these tracks to get to the health centre. Probably not going to happen. If you're not walking, then you can get around the place a little bit better in a dugout canoe outrigger or one of the sailing outriggers. We sort of speculated whether this guy was a Commonwealth Bank employee, but maybe not. Safe Motherhood, the Safe Motherhood program that we're, I suppose, running evolved from a study that Barry Kirby did in 2010 when he investigated all 34 maternal deaths that occurred in the Milne Bay province over a 1-year period. This involved going out in the little 20-foot banana boat and conducting verbal autopsies in the villages and the health centres where each maternal death occurred. It took about 3 months to go around all of the islands, and some of them are like 250 kilometres out from Alatau across open ocean, up into the mountains. Talking to anyone who was able to provide some sort of information about what this woman's life was like before she died, what were the circumstances surrounding her death. It was absolutely amazing to see how interested people were when they knew what was going on. The women came down particularly. Everybody up there knew more than one person who has died having a baby, and they all had information to contribute, and they all wanted to put their 2 and 6 worth in. The results were interesting. We were sort of thinking maybe there's something weird going on to give such a high maternal mortality up there. But the mothers, it turns out, in PNG have pretty much the same problems as women in Australia. There's a little bit more TB, there's a bit of malaria up there that thankfully we don't have, but bleeding is the big problem. We were expecting to see a predominance of older women because, hey, they're the high-risk mothers, but, you know, every age group was spread pretty evenly across these 34 deaths. We were expecting, again, to see mainly high-parity women because they're the high-risk mothers, but no, first-time mothers, second-time mothers, it was pretty evenly distributed. As Prof Moller said in the video, they deliver their babies in houses which have no support for anyone who has a problem. If you're in labour or if you've had a postpartum hemorrhage, trying to walk down that village track, bit of a problem happening there for sure. We got some common recurring themes in these verbal autopsies about why women actually had their babies in the villages. You know, there were some cultural aspects that were important in explaining why they didn't get care when they're in trouble. Embarrassment, as Barry said, about being impoverished. No waiting house, no good water. They were real problems, and half of these women don't really know when their baby's coming anyway. So, you know, we just wait until we get some pains and hope we can do it then. They were often scolded by the health centre staff. There was a problem there because, you know, they're dirty. They've got nothing for this new child, and that gave health centres a particular reputation. The influence of husbands was important as well. They're the decision makers. They're the ones who have to decide when to take this lady down, and they've got no idea what's going on. So they often didn't know, even if she was bleeding, you know, when's the right time to go, and they leave it too late. So how do you come these issues if you sort of have a bit of an idea about what's going on? Well, step one is to make the labour unit a little more functional. Where it's needed, we get in and we do some renovation. Nobody wants to come to a health centre where the labour ward's untidy and a bit dirty to deliver their baby. Having a pleasant environment gives women an incentive. You know, yeah, that's a nice place. I could come and have my baby there. There's no electricity supply in a lot of them. Well, there's no electricity supply. Some of the health centres have a small generator, but half the time they don't work. So solar panels, LED lights. Having nowhere to stay was a huge problem. It's a real disincentive to deliver your baby if you're nearly at term, but you've got to come down and sleep on the beach. So this is the newest waiting house that we've put in at Pumani. You can see 3 mothers here. This one actually holds 4. They're waiting here. Here's a couple of staff, and someone's got a carer with them waiting under the building in the shade. Having no access to clean water when you come down is a real disincentive as well. So where water supplies need repairs, we get in and get it done. Tanks get pulled apart, cleaned, put back together, reassembled, and then connected to the rainwater supply. There is no town water supply. We do the training, and that's a very big part of the whole program now, in the labour ward at each health centre. We don't bring people in and do it in a big commercial centre. Okay, we do it in the room where they're familiar with the layout and they're familiar with what drugs they've got and where they are. It's all inclusive, so everybody gets trained, and it covers things like difficult deliveries, manual removal of placenta, vacuum extraction, hemorrhage, and other things. Everybody gets a chance to practice at each of the stations until they feel comfortable with it. This is the manual removal of a placenta training station. You can see here a bit of fake blood gets splashed around because that helps to make it look a bit more realistic, and the people actually appreciate that. At the Kiwi Cup training session, Barry likes to throw a bit of emotion into the room, a bit of screaming and yelling like he's the mother that's in pain here, and it all adds to it, but they appreciate having realistic scenarios to practice on. People always find the neonatal resuscitation station a little bit difficult, but it's good to give them some practice. It helps them feel more comfortable. We encourage women to plan their family and have adequately spaced babies when they present for a delivery. We train the nurses in inserting implants, but mothers get offered a full range of options that are available in their particular area anyway, including tubal ligation. Cultural beliefs play a big role here, and the attitudes of male partners and religion particularly often prevent women making the choices that they want to make. Now, I've deliberately left the incentive package thing till last because everybody wants to focus on the baby bundles, but it's the whole package that's actually responsible for having the results. Mothers aren't as embarrassed if they know they're going to get something when they come down. They don't have to worry about their dirty clothes. And you can't go cranky at somebody for having dirty clothes if you're about to give them a nice present like that. And it's completely changed the relationship between the mothers and the health centres. Well, the packages, well, you saw them getting assembled in the video, and they get delivered either by the plane now or by boat. When they arrive, everybody wants to come and help carry them up, even the little bare bum kids. With the first 15 centres where we introduced the program, we were able to show that increasing the proportion of supervised deliveries really did change the maternal mortality. The expected number of deaths per year was about 18. After 12 months, there was only 4, and they were no longer in the health centres because the girls had some quite significant training. And you can see here the impact of the training. They actually had some quite complicated deliveries to look after, but they did not have any deaths in the health centres there. We now support 23 centres, and you can see here the changes in orange, or the before and after shots of the number of supervised deliveries. Some centres aren't sort of as responsive as others, and there's some reasons for that. We need to get in and look at it. But overall, there's been a 91% increase with an extremely statistically significant result. Increased proportion of supervised deliveries results in fewer maternal mortality figures. Retrievals are an important part, but it's at the moment still only a small part. This lady was anemic from malaria. She had a big postpartum hemorrhage. She actually went home. She was 6 hours up the mountain, and then she returns with pneumonia. She knew she was going to die. We were transporting her from the health centre where we had just arrived to do training, to the next one because they didn't have any oxygen in their cylinder. It was empty. And the next one down the road, they still had half a cylinder of oxygen. So we put a drip in, some antibiotics, and get her around. But she wanted Sue to hold her up so that we could take a photo of her to show her baby what her mother looked like when she grew up. She actually ended up in Alatau. She got well, made a really good recovery, which is why we've got a happy ending there. Going forward, our plan is to actually get a little bit more involved with women's issues, but also with men's issues. Starting in December, we're going to be producing a suite of mass media programs to go on TV and radio that address particularly male attitudes towards women and in particular childbirth. Try and sort of change the attitudes of men up there a bit. Well, there's a lot more to the story. This is just a really quick glimpse. We haven't got all the solutions yet, but we made a start and we're actually getting some results. That's the Thor Foundation website. If you want to look it up and get a little bit more information, look us up on Facebook. And if you want one of Barry's business cards with email addresses on, I can hand them out to you as well. Thank you very much.